Next weekend, I'll be in Atlantic City, New Jersey, playing my first Scrabble tournament of 2025. This tournament has a really strong field, so it'll be a great opportunity to assess the state of my game. But in this video, I'm going to take a look back at the 2017 edition of this tournament when I pulled off an extremely rare feat. Somehow, I managed to win all 20 of my games. Perfect records over tournaments this long aren't supposed to happen in Scrabble, and as you'd expect, I benefited from a huge amount of luck, especially in my 4 games against one of my best friends, fellow Grandmaster Scott Appel. My first matchup with Scott was in round 13 when he was right behind my 12-0 record at 11-1. The game wasn't living up to that lofty billing, with both of us playing just one bingo in our first 11 turns. Scott pulls even with niche for 35, and I draw the dreaded Q, which puts me in a really tough spot. There are 3 different spots to play a 7-letter bingo, all of which require a vowel to begin the word. Cat for 31 stands out as a strong option, but with only 3 tiles left in the bag, almost any bingo that Scott may have will still play on the board in one of the other spots, after which I immediately lose. So instead, I play Chi for just 11. This leaves me with very good chances of drawing a bingo next turn, allowing me to counter Scott's bingos with my own. My plan comes together as I draw an R for roaster hooking root. Not to be outdone, Scott makes an excellent block of toot for just 3 points, correctly suspecting that I have a bingo that only plays in that spot. Not only that, after dumping his T, he has great chances of drawing Android or Adenoid, which will play in 2 spots. With Roaster blocked, it's my turn to go on the defensive. From my POV, the only remaining bingo Scott can hold is Adenoid. With a small lead already, I decide I can abandon my quest for my own bingo and block both Adenoid spots at once with a play like Orates, which I play to go up by 39. Once I draw an I from the bag, I realize that Scott actually does have Adenoid, so my blocking move saves me the game. Except, Scott catches me off guard with his heavy-hitting response of dined for 40 points, taking a 1-point lead. We're both very low on time at this point, so I'm temporarily panicked, but I can breathe a sigh of relief as I make my only move that uses both of my final 2 tiles. Ride for 5 points, securing the narrow win. With more time to think, Scott could have played the much trickier Danio instead of dined, after which I would have had no places on this tight board to play both my I and R at once. With the aid of an extra turn, Scott would have jumped ahead of me at the last moment and won the game. In fact, I could have avoided this situation as far back as my block of Orates. The correct move here to ensure victory against Scott's rack of Adenoid is Odors for the same score instead. This denies him overlaps down the M column and allows me to win easily, even without an outplay. After escaping with this win, Scott and I meet again in round 18, at which point he needs to beat me 3 straight times to win the tournament. And he's 1 step ahead of me for most of the way here, hitting bingos of tokening, retraced, and emulator right after my own big plays to stay ahead. Here, there are just 7 tiles in the bag, so there's not much game left and there's very little room to bingo on this board. The one asset I have is the ED in the lower right corner, which won't be easy to block productively. With this in mind, I play Wax for 35. This play looks suicidal, as Scott will be able to absolutely hammer this spot with any remotely flexible rack of tiles. But after taking my new tiles, there will be just 4 tiles left in the bag, meaning any 4-tile play Scott makes there to maximize his score will leave him vulnerable to out bingos from me to retake the lead. Amazingly, I draw G-O blank after Wax, and Scott quickly plays Yow for 81 points to surge far into the lead. My diversion works, but my perfect record will go up in smoke unless I can find a 9-letter bingo ending in ED here. Fortunately for me, there's one and only one winning move here, and I find it. Elongated for 80 points, retaking the lead and getting a full rack of tiles from Scott for a miraculous 478-458 win. I've now clinched victory in the tournament, and now I'd normally play people no longer in the hunt for top spots, but Scott has also clinched second place, meaning if I want to run the table, I'll have to beat him twice more. Once again, Scott has a small lead in round 19, and after his play of Make for 20, the board is nearly impossible to bingo on, requiring incredibly precise fits like, well, bingos underneath Goop, or maybe WH bingos hooking Ed. I don't have anything like that, and I'm thinking I'll have to take a chance with something like Meze for 30, praying that I draw an S. Then I see a tough move that seems by far best. Obelized in between the O and D on the board for 63 points. This move does use up my blank, but even though it's not a bingo, the Z hits just the right spot to make it score like one. And on this barren board, it's by far my best move. Now I'm the one with the solid lead on a dead board, and Scott is forced to open it with Droit for 21. I'm fortunate to draw the second blank after using up the first, but again it comes with the annoying Q. I do have an easy spot to dump it for 31, but I decide to use it again on a non-bingo play with Quench for 58. This puts me up by enough points to withstand almost any bingo Scott may draw, and using 5 tiles instead of 1 with Chi makes it impossible for Scott to bingo twice. As it happened, Scott's tiles were terrible, and after his desperation opening of Mule, I drew both remaining S's and bingoed with Senores en route to a 445-313 win, a score that doesn't at all reflect how close the game was. It's all come down to round 20, and in stark contrast to round 13, both of us unleash a flurry of high-scoring moves. After my second turn bingo of Cranog, Scott answers with a 1-2 punch of Steerin and Doolies. Prior to Doolies, I was eyeing this big spot to play Zag for a fantastic score, but with Doolies on the board, I could play the absolutely gargantuan Up Gazed for 119 points. I vividly recall both of us laughing in disbelief at the absurdity of this move, though fortunately Scott had a solid counter in Inject for 69, and after my Twiney, he suddenly retakes the lead with Panicle across 2 double word scores for 98. He then answers my 58-point Fox with Re-Inject for 51. After my fish of Ka for 22, hoping for an A for Mantles or an O for Meltons, Scott can dump his Q and set up his second I with Chi for 17. However, he makes a great read here and plays We for 23. This looks odd at first glance, keeping the Q in reserve, but if I had had one of the 3 remaining U's, I almost certainly would have tried to play it instead of just the K by itself. Therefore, knowing that the U's are likely lurking in the bag, he sets up his S and can now convert a U draw into Quids for 60. I have an S of my own that I could have used to block, but I fail to realize what Scott's up to, and I just play Gem for 12, holding on to my lone vowel. After which, Scott draws 2 U's and uses one to play Quids just as planned, going up by 89. At this point, things are looking grim for me, but of course, Scott goes on a spree of drawing 12 vowels in 13 tiles, bringing his scoring to a grinding halt. Meanwhile, despite his savvy block of Ohio, I managed to sneak a bingo onto the board with Turn Soul and then draw all of the key consonants that eluded Scott. When all is said and done, I come from behind to win 538 to 503 and finish with a perfect 20-0 record. According to crosstables.com, this is the only North American Lexicon tournament where the winner was undefeated across 20 games or longer. There's no question that I benefited from incredible luck every time I needed it, but I did make some resourceful plays at just the right times. Aspiring to win each and every game in Scrabble is a great mindset, but even the very best players never actually expect to pull it off. The odds are overwhelming that I'll never do this again, but hey, I'm not complaining. Once is more than enough. Hope you enjoyed these games, and thanks for watching. See you next time.